Blog Talk Radio.
We gonna start this thing alright. Groove all in the money logging out. Come on, come on. Hey, 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 do it, baby, take it, baby. Hey, 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 do it, baby, take it, baby. Hey, 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 do it, baby, take it, baby. Hey, 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 do it, baby. I'm living my best life. Ain't going back and forth with you now. I'm living my best life. Ain't going back and forth with you now. I'm living my best life. Ain't going back and forth with you now. I'm living my best life. Ain't going back and forth with you now.
You got a lot to be smiling for. So what the you be wildin' for? Come on, I get my grin on. I'm smiling, bitch, cause I always get my win on. I've been on so many different stages. Graced the cover of 100 magazine pages. Made people smile everywhere that I went. I even put it on the first black president. It's evident I'm hot as a crock pot. With a big ass smile like Mr. Hot Spot. You got a lot to be smiling for. So what the you be wildin' for? If you're breathing, you achieving. We having fun this evening, believe it.
I'm living my best life. Ain't going back and forth with you now. I'm living my best life. Ain't going back and forth with you now. I'm living my best life. Ain't going back and forth with you now. I'm living my best life. Ain't going back and forth with you now. Put your middle fingers up in the air and show a hater you don't even much care. We finna get another bag this year. My ex, you can have that there. Hey, this year, bad vibes get cut off. More trips, new chicks with no draws. More drinks, more smoking, more cars. More shows with Duval and Snoop Dogg. Look, I ain't tryna throw no shade, cause I can't see them in my lane. As long as my rent getting paid, I can care less with a big thing, huh? You in the club every night with no job. Eating good off your food stamp card. You made a killing last year off fraud. If you know you ain't going to work tomorrow, I'm living my best life. Ain't going back and forth with you now. I'm living my best life. Ain't going back and forth with you now. I'm living my best life. Ain't going back and forth with you now. I'm living my best life. Ain't going back and forth with you now.
You got a lot to be smiling for. So what the you be wildin' for? If you're breathing, you achieving. We having fun this evening, believe it.
Hey, good evening. Welcome to another edition of the Batchelor Pad. Actually, the Batchelor News Radio show. And we thank you for joining us wherever you're listening. We appreciate you checking in, and we have a lot to get to, so let's get to it. I want to bring in my first guest. Always good to have him make a house call. He's an author, best-selling author, and talk show host on XM satellite radio. We'll get to that in a few. He is Dr. Wilmer J. Leon III, and Doc, always a pleasure.
Good evening. It's a pleasure. I hope this is coming through clearly. I couldn't get my my Bluetooth to work, so got to work with what I got.
Uh-oh. Well, we'll make it work. So I want to talk about your op-ed piece. We talked briefly last week about Jay-Z and if he was selling out not just Colin Kaepernick, but the entire movement. And you wrote a piece on that. Why don't you talk about the piece and your reasoning why?
Well, the piece is entitled Jay-Z Did Not Sell Out, He Bought In. And the point of the piece, to what we were talking about last week, is that you have to, I believe, in order to assess this accurately, you have to understand that Jay-Z is a capitalist. And as a capitalist, he's concerned about profit. He's concerned about making that paper. And the rest of the issues are peripheral. And so when you look at his history and understand that by his own admission, he was a drug dealer in his own neighborhood. He even joked about going from grams to Grammys. So when you have someone with that mindset, you're going to get a certain type of predictable behavior. And so for him to have now struck this deal with the NFL and talk about, in a very, what I said was Trumpian manner, about whether kneeling is effective and whether or not kneeling is necessary, it really comes down to he got his contract and everybody else be damned. And he talks about supporting Cap, but Kaepernick's protest had nothing to do with Jay-Z getting was never centered around Jay-Z getting a contract with the NFL to manage acts and at the Super Bowl. It was about police brutality. So I don't go through this as a condemnation of Jay-Z, nor being critical of him or his lifestyle. He's a capitalist, and worst of all, he's a black capitalist. So it is what it is.
Well, let me ask you this, just playing advocate here. Again, wouldn't he have been better served in a controversy had he not tried to wrap himself around the social side of things and kneeling and portraying himself as this new partnership as a champion for, not only the police brutality but social change. Moreover, the incarceration fight that we see with black and brown people going to prison at an alarming rate. Wouldn't he have been better just served saying, I'm doing this for my business and I'm going to try my best to help bring some awareness, rather than trying to say he is now the face of the league in terms of what Colin Kaepernick started, at least?
Yes, honesty is always the best policy. And taking your question even a step further, he would have been, and more importantly, the community would have been better off had he used the leverage and the power that he had to actually do something. I opened the piece with the quote from Dr. King about power and love, and he didn't use his power. He could have sat there and told Roger Goodell, look, this is what I need you to do. We got to get Cat back in the league. He could have come to the mic when he announced the deal and said, look, y'all, I tried to get Cap back. Roger Goodell won't budge. There were a number of things that he could have done. A lot of using the leverage and the power that he has. But as a black capitalist, and this is what people need to understand, and Manning Marable's book, how capitalism ruined black America, a black capitalist is someone that employs the same tactics within the black community as a white capitalist. And the whole thing is just about getting paid. So a quick example would be gentrification in your neighborhood. And you have white developers that come into the neighborhood and they displace the indigenous black community, and they don't provide any housing, any affordable housing, or they make no accommodations for the people they're displacing. Well, then you bring in a black developer who does exactly the same thing. And you claim that as success because it's a black person getting paid instead of a white person getting paid. When it's really not about who gets paid, it's about who's getting displaced, why, and what are you doing to accommodate those people. So, he's just another interloper. He's just another carpetbagger. He's just another profiteer at the expense of the community. And I don't say that, I'm not being judgmental. It just is what it is. You can, not you personally, but as a collective you can decide how you value that yourself.
Talk with Dr. Wilmer J. Leon here on the pad. Doc, when you look at this, though, doesn't this, I'm over-exaggerating, but does it set back any type of stride that the Colin Kaepernick, the Eric Reed, some of the other players, some of the other people around the NFL, in a sense, just like when you have, it might be a stretch example, but, a Charles Barkley coming out saying, black people are racist too, or making these type of statements, and white folks saying, see, your own kind believe these negative things about you, so your own kind is speaking it, so it must be true. Is that something similar with Jay-Z doing what he did, or lack thereof?
Yes, it's all part and parcel of the same mentality. And, now, as Charles Barkley says, now that he's rich, things are different. The analysis no longer applies. Now that he's rich, it's all good, and it's all part and parcel of the same of the same mentality, and because what happens is they start buying into that same Republican politics of the importance of the individual, and that now the individual is more important than the collective. And one of the things about our struggle that has always been consistent is our struggle has always been about the collective. It has never been about the individual. But in too many instances, what you find is that once these guys make some money, once these guys have a modicum of success, it now becomes all about them, and the rest of us be damned.
I want to switch gears and talk some politics, and as we talk about black people, it's so early, we know that, but Joe Biden continues to do really well with African Americans, in particular older African Americans. Kamala Harris has dropped, according to some polls, considerably, and her connection or lack thereof seems to be with black people. Is it a foregone conclusion that Joe Biden will at least get the black vote primarily, even if young millennials and people of color come out as well?
I think right now it's still too early to make that call. The data is indicating that that's more of a probability than a possibility, but I wouldn't sell out Bernie, and I wouldn't sell out Elizabeth Warren. There's a long way to go in this game, and so again, it's more of a probability than a possibility, but I'm not ready to say that Joe Biden is the guy quite yet.
Well, why is it with us, a lot of us, that we always want to take that safe bet that middle of the road, don't disturb the waters, don't ruffle any feathers candidate. And, I mean, obviously Obama was going to get, 90 plus or whatever he got in the 2 terms that he served from African Americans. But why is it that we always want to go for candidates that are seem to be safe, Democrat primarily, and they're always white?
Because to a great degree, and I'm making some generalizations here, we have been convinced that our interests as African Americans are secondary to the interests of so-called America. And we so want to be Americans, we so want to be loved, and we so want to be accepted that we will sacrifice that for respect, let alone fear. So we have been convinced that ours will come by and by, and that for us to put our interests first somehow makes us less American.
So then we turn around to acquiesce over and over again and get the short end of the stick. Any thoughts on the data why Harris has dropped in most polls and why Elizabeth Warren seems to be surging?
Well, on the Kamala Harris question, because people are peeping her for the fraud that she is. She has tried to create a persona. She's tried to portray an image of herself as this incredibly progressive prosecutor who has always stood on the side of the community, and she became a prosecutor to balance the scales and to level the playing field so that when black people go to court, they're going to get a fair shake. And her record just does not support the image that she's been trying to portray. And they pull, and that's one thing. And the other thing is, what you're finding, I think, within the pool of candidates that you have in the Democratic Party, you have those that are fighting for substantive change, such as Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, and then you have those who, by Kamala Harris's own admission, I am not seeking change. I've heard her say that a number of times. I am not looking to change the system. And Bernie and Elizabeth Warren are saying substantive change must occur. And so you've got Joe Biden, who's trying to play it kind of on both sides of the fence, but at the end of the day, he's a status quo guy. And most of the others, with the exception of Tulsi Gabbard, and her discussion about the war budget, everybody else is pretty much just trying to stick in the middle and pretty much stay with the status quo, just kind of make the edges a little softer, a little more palatable. So Kamala Harris, she's a status quo candidate. And as a status quo candidate, she can't compete with Joe Biden.
Well, I got a text from someone that said that it seems when you're on, you don't like any of the candidates. Why don't you run for president?
Well, because we all have to stay in our lanes. And see, and let me just say to the person that sent that text message, this is a huge problem. I don't know what their ethnicity is, but I will just assume, for the sake of this conversation, that they're African American. We got to get out of our feelings. I know Kamala Harris personally. I am not speaking about her personally. It has nothing to do with whether I like Joe Biden or don't like Kamala Harris, or whether I like Bernie or don't like. It has to do with policy. And we get so wrapped up in the politics of personality that we lose sight of the fact that politics is about the deliverance of substantive policy to make the life of the community better. Oh man, you hate Barack Obama. I don't know Barack Obama, but I know that a lot of stuff that Barack Obama did was wrong. And me calling him out for being wrong doesn't mean I don't like him. It means I don't like what he did. So to that texter or emailer, get out of your feelings and start reading some stuff and start understanding the significance of policy and leave the personality stuff aside.
Well, the emailer said that they are African American and they want to know, who do you support at this point?
Right now, the person that, in my opinion, is articulating the best policy positions is Bernie Sanders. What Bernie Sanders is talking about in terms of the African American community, Bernie Sanders is talking about changing the judicial system. Bernie Sanders is talking about protecting your vote. He's one of the few that is actually acknowledging the fact that that the system is rigged and that the voting process works to our disadvantage instead of to our advantage. So to answer that question, the person that I think is articulating the clearest, most substantive policy positions that would have the most immediate and direct impact on the lives of African Americans is Bernie Sanders.
Well, it's one of those things, though, that they all seem to be flawed. Doc,
he is not. He is far from perfect. But what I should have said, I should have prefaced my comments by saying I subscribe to the position that Ruby Sales has articulated, which is we have to find the candidate that gives us the most space in which to operate, and then operate within and expand that space. And in my opinion, Bernie Sanders is the candidate that gives us the most space in which to operate, and we go in that camp and we expand that space. I should have prefaced my answer with that statement.
Okay. Final part of this. So when you look at what the orange orangutan in the White House has been saying, in particular about Jews being disloyal, and that any Jew that votes for the Democrats is disloyal and they're weak and this, that, paraphrasing some things. No response from the other side, as usual. No real response. You got the candidates responding because they want to make headway and headlines by saying something, but nothing from there. From the CBC or anyone in regards to this. Meanwhile, on top of the fact that he continues to go after the squad, which I hate it called, but in particular Tlaib and Omar, and no response. The other part of that you can respond to is that if Israel is so quick to listen to someone like him who tweets and says don't let them in, and you block them, maybe we should keep some of that money. Maybe we shouldn't give them $3 billion, $5 billion a year. I mean, it's just ridiculous. You're going to block a couple of people, a couple of duly elected congresswomen, freshman women that they all take these trips, most of them, just to see what's on the ground, what's going on between the conflict. You're going to block them, then send that money back at the same time.
There's one candidate that's made that very same statement, You know who it is? Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders. I did hear him say that. That's right.
See, and I'm not saying this to wave the flag for Bernie Sanders. That's a fact. The only candidate that has had the guts to stand up and say exactly what you just said is Bernie Sanders. Kamala Harris hasn't said it. Elizabeth Warren hasn't said it. Joe Biden won't say it. Bernie Sanders said it. The CBC won't say it. Oh, heck no, they're not going to say that. That would actually take some backbone and some spine. They're not going to say that. See, so this is where it becomes incumbent upon us, again, to get out of our feelings and away from the warm and fuzzy and what makes us so comfortable and happy. And we've got to understand people are suffering in this country. And the United States is going around the world, like in places like Yemen, and murdering people. And they're using our hard-earned tax dollars to do it, which is why you can't get clean drinking water in Flint, Michigan, which is why you can't get clean drinking water now in Newark, New Jersey. And folks got to come, folks are going to have to make some seriously hard decisions in a very short. What are you really about? What are you about? What do you stand for? And what are you willing to do to get it?
Yeah, he is the only one that spoke up, and you're right. We shouldn't come to expect them. They're so concerned about beating Donald Trump, they're not going after Donald Trump. And let this be the other side. And Obama made statements like that. First of all, they'd be calling for him impeached and everything else. But second, Republicans would be right on it. They would be right on. As soon as Obama would have said something, the next statement would have came out. They would have been all on TV, and they did it. They get in line and they do their talking points, even if they're talking points. This other side, man, they're just like you said. You got to grow some.
Look, I'm not telling you how I feel. I'm telling you what I know. And I know this because of the research, the homework, and the reading that I do. I have data to support the positions I'm articulating. This is not about who makes me feel comfortable and what makes me feel uncomfortable and what upsets my stomach and makes me burp. This is about what I know. So when somebody says, oh, you don't like Kamala Harris, it ain't got nothing to do with what I like. It has to do with what I know. And one of the biggest problems that we have politically in our community, and I'll use former President Obama as an example, as soon as you start talking about policy, people want to get all wrapped up in their feelings, and they want to start telling you what you don't understand and what you don't realize and what you're failing to appreciate. And then when you give them the data, they have nothing to say other than, oh, you're just a Tom and you don't like Barack Obama.
Right. It's all about the policies for me. It's always been about the policies. There's some things that I think the former president did really well, and there's some things I've been critical of on this broadcast. People can go back and listen to the tape. So it's all about policy for me, and politics is personal, So, it's got to line up with our agenda, my agenda, your agenda, whatever that agenda is. But it's not, but at least for me, it's definitely not personal. Before you go, let people know where they can read your op-ed piece. If you don't mind, I'd like to post it on our website as well, but that would be up to you. And, of course, how people can listen to your show, sir.
Well, people can read the most current op-ed, and let me. Well, I'm not gonna give you the end of it, but the title of it is Jay-Z didn't sell out, he bought in, and it's at Black Agenda Report. If you go to blackagendareport.com, Glenn Ford was very nice to publish that piece. That's where it is right now. It's probably going to be up. This coming week, it'll be up in a number of black newspapers across the country. The show you can hear Saturdays from 11 to 2 Eastern on Sirius XM, channel 126, Urban View. The show is every Saturday, 11 to 2, and you can go to WilmerLeon.com. You can reach me at WilmerLeon.com.
Always a pleasure to have you on, Doc.
Inside the Issues with Wilmer Leon on Sirius XM.
Right. That's what I wanted you to make sure you push. Yeah. Doc, as always, man, I appreciate your time as always, man, and keep fighting the fight.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you as always. Take care.
So we have Wilmer Leon here on the pad. 646-929-0130, the number to get in touch with us. If you have a question, you can hit us up on Facebook at Pad Nation or on Twitter at Pad Nation 2. Hopefully we'll get Willie Simmons on. He's the head football coach at Florida A&M. Talk about their upcoming season on the pad. Stay tuned.
Then to look for what would make
harder to breathe when I'm gone, when I'm gone. Do you ever get lonely like I do? Tell me how much you miss me when I'm not there beside you. It's getting harder and harder to breathe when I'm no, I don't see it often, and I probably should have told you I heard this back. I know, and I probably shouldn't want this so bad. It's weighing on me. Don't wanna wake up in the morning. Cannot undo what we did in this bed, and I can't get you out, so I gotta go. No, I'm not ready for you. Want me all alone, but I'm undecided, excited, ignited, and I don't wanna feel the way I do, but I like it. Look at all these sparks flying, but I'm still indecisive, and she want me to wipe it, but I know I shouldn't be doing this, but here we go again. Girl, you know that pussy is my weakness. Girl, you got me addicted when you're switching positions. You tell me shut up, and you know I listen. I hate it, wishing that I did it. I can't keep sitting and pretending. Ooh, no, I'm taking off your clothes. We getting sexual, getting so good, think I propose. I don't know, but I'm undecided, excited, ignited, and I don't wanna feel the way I do, but I like it. Look at all these sparks flying, but I'm still indecisive, and she want me to wipe it, but I'm undecided. Oh no, I'm undecided. 'Cause I'm undecided. No, baby, I'm afraid of your love. Oh, ooh, you got me, baby. 'Cause I can't get enough. I'm undecided, excited, ignited, and I don't wanna feel the way I do, but I like it. Look at all these sparks flying, but I'm still indecisive, and she want me to wipe it, but I'm undecided. But I'm undecided.
Hey, this is L.A. Batchelor reminding you to join us on the Donaldson Files with your hosts Tom Donaldson and Coco Constantly. Join them and listen to all the topics and discussions on Mondays on WCOMFM.org or on Tuesdays and Wednesdays at blogtalkradio.com/LA Batchelor. It is politics that you've never heard before on the Donaldson Files. And if you miss any part of their broadcast, you can listen to the podcast at our website, thebachelorpadnetwork.com.
Somebody give me
Somebody tell me the answers. Me and you isn't the answer. Me and you isn't. Maybe I'm telling myself that, but there ain't nothing that'll change that. What good would it be if I knew how you felt about me? Yeah. It could have been right, but I was wrong. Only think about you and you alone. Part of me that cared is gone, and I know that I can't get caught up. We could have been, and we try to pretend every now and again. We don't dream about, don't think about what we could have been. No, I'm holding it in, 'cause I know in the end, you dream about, I think about what we could have been. We could have been, we could have been. Remember the night in Miami. First time you put your arms around me. I'm up reminiscing. And thinking about you isn't helping. Thinking about you doesn't tell me what good it would do if I decide to face the truth. It could have been right, but I was wrong. I only think about you when you're wrong. You only hit me up when she's not home, and that's why I can't get caught up. We could have been, and we try to pretend every now and again. We don't dream about, don't think about what we could have been. Oh, yeah. I'm holding it in, 'cause I know in the end, you dream about, I think about what we could have been. We could have been. We could have. We could have been. We could have been. We could have been. Yeah. We could have been.
Hey, what we could have been, what we should have been. If I wasn't with somebody, if we gotta hide it, what's the point of trying? I ain't just your friend, no, what's the point of lying? Trying to sell a story, ain't nobody buying. Look me in my eyes, don't that feel nice? Why should it end? Baby, I could have been him or than your friend. Just say what and when, where to make a trip, baby, make a wish, be the one I'm with. Should've been, shoulda, coulda, would have been. Hey, yeah, I would have been. Yeah, I would have been. man, he fine, yeah. So fine, that's why he's mine, yeah. Real cute like a Zelda. So smooth like Osman Power. I don't mind, no, I don't mind, yeah. If he got the curry's eyes, yeah. He protects me like 2K. He's my baby, oh, he's my baby. I feel free as a bird, flying around in the moon. As long as, baby, as long as I got you, baby, 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 I'm flying. As long as I got you, babe, and I'm not trying to let go. Baby, 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 I'm flying. As long as I got you, baby. Nikki like what she like, eh? Only you can get me right, babe. And I love the way you love me, like Kanye loves Kanye. So sexy, what can I say? I want your love just like Lorenzo. I could talk about him all day. He's my baby, oh, he's my baby. I feel free as a bird, flying around in the moon. As long as, baby, as long as I got you, baby, 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 I'm flying. As long as I got you, babe, and I'm not trying to let go. Baby, 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 I'm flying. As long as I got you,
Welcome back to the Bachelor Pad. We thank you for joining us. The Bachelor News Show. Waiting for a couple of our coaches to get on. I also have Nick Anastas. We're going to switch to sports shortly. I want to go to the phones and bring in a caller while we wait for our coaches to call in. Caller from, sir, did you say you were in Detroit?
Yes.
Okay, and what's your name?
Sure. My name is Ed, calling from Detroit, Michigan.
Okay, and what's your question or comment before we get to our coach on the line? Go ahead.
Sure. My question is dealing with the 2020 election coming up is with concern of voter fraud. Is we all know there was some Russia conclusion as far as Russia trying to influence our 2016 election. It has been proven that President Trump was involved in it, but what the mainstream media and Associated Press hasn't talked too much about is one of my concerns with the 2020 election coming up is the voter fraud. For example, in 2016, Jill Stein, who was a third-party candidate, did a major recount, and they found 700 more votes than voters in Detroit, and in Chicago was another city where there was thousands of more votes than voters. And in the other part of the voter fraud that I'm concerned with is the aspect of non-citizens being able to vote in our major elections. And I'm wondering what can be done about this, and I just haven't heard or seen too much about it in the mainstream media and Associated Press and being talked about, because that'd be something I definitely would not want to have happen here in the 2020 election coming up. I'm just trying to get your thoughts and opinions when it comes to the issue of the voter fraud.
Absolutely. You hold that line. We'll come back to you. I think it's very important that there's a lot that has been said on both sides of that, the Russian investigation, of course, the Russian interference. We'll get to that, sir. I just want to go back to my programming. I promise I'll come back to you, but I want to bring in my first guest. He is the head football coach at Benedict College, getting ready for their upcoming game September 7th at Fayetteville State. He is Mike White. And Coach White, I appreciate you coming on, sir.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, talk about this. This conference is very competitive. I mean, you look at the Miles colleges, the Albany States, the Morehouse, and of course, you can't go without talking about the likes of a Tuskegee. How difficult is it to win and based on predictions for preseason, where do you feel your team is based on what the coaches poll and preseason poll says?
I'm not sure about the prediction. The prediction said we will end up second. Right now, this is a pretty good defense and offense and special teams. We don't have a lot of stars, but we play good football, and the conference from top to bottom is very tough. So if you're able to last through get to the end of the season, those last 4 or 5 games when you play Eastern Division teams, and see how you match up then, is who's left standing at the end has kind of been our approach the last few years, and hope we can get to the conference championship this year.
When you pick so high in the SIAC, what does that put a sort of a target on your back for some of the other teams that are predicted to finish lower? They still got to play the game. But do you think that you'll get a tougher fight from some of the teams that are predicted to finish lower because you're predicted to be so high?
Not really. I think a lot of that comes from when you match up against them teams the year before. Teams want to pay you back from if you beat them last year. I think it has a little bit more to do with the head-to-head matchups, but not as a target on our back. Here at Benedict, we're still trying to build trying to consistent win a year in and year out, and that's the plan. And I think that's what we are thinking right now.
Talking with Mike White. Of course, he is the head football coach at Benedict College, getting ready for Fayetteville State. I'll get to that in a sec, Coach. But talk about your returning starters, some of the players to watch on both sides of the ball.
We have a very good secondary and linebackers. I think is probably our strong point. We've always been pretty good up front last few years, but now the secondary has kind of grew up, and Bobby Cummings, our free safety, is the all-conference performer from last year. Traviante Brown is also a all-conference, all-American cornerback. And we have Amari Andrews, which is our middle linebacker, which is a very good linebacker. I think on the line we are by committee, even though we have 2 starters, Rashard Miller and Joshua Sinksy. They come back to play on defense. And offensively, we have our quarterback, Phillip Brown. We got a couple of guys over there, but we also have some new faces coming along also, and we can put enough things together to be a complete squad this year.
Coach, when you look at the schedule, we'll get to Fayetteville State in a second, but when you look at your schedule, you have 2 CIAA teams on your schedule. One, you got to travel. The other one, of course, at home, up the road, if you will, at Johnson C. Smith. Talk about how important it is. Maybe you don't recruit the same kids that these guys have, but from a winning standpoint, recruiting standpoint, that you want to grab some of that talent if and when you beat the likes of Fayetteville State and Johnson C. Smith from another conference.
I think it's important, just by our location being Columbia, our way, you in North Carolina, and we have a few North Carolina kids, so I do think that's important, just the way you match up, playoffs, again, just representing your conference and just representing playing a good football team. We know how good Fayetteville is, and we know Johnson C. Smith, we beat them last year, but we know, again, that's going to be a tougher game this year. So you always, to get off in a good start, to have a good season, you got to get off to a good start. So
let's talk about the Broncos that you have to travel to play. Talk about what they present offensively and defensively that may give you some issues.
They're just a well-rounded team. They got a lot of experience. Definitely the running back Green is just a dynamite. That'll be the best back we'll face all year. And like I said, they got some hitters on defense that run around, and I like the overall squad. You know, they just do a job. It's when you see them play, you understand why they was in the championship game, and Coach Hayes has done just a great job with those guys and got them ready, and they're going to be trouble in the CIAA, and the Tigers will have their hands full the first game.
So, what are the keys? Say 5 keys to winning this opening game on the road, and how important is it to win this opening game on the road?
I think it's very important, and I think the biggest key probably for us is definitely taking care of the football, not allowing them the Fayetteville big plays, trying to limit, memorize the running back Green, try to keep him from making so many big runs, and try to, I guess, establish some consistency with our football team. Whether that's run or pass, I think we're going to be able to do both. But I think, again, what is our identity is going to be? Are we going to be able to run the ball like we want to, and will we be effectively making some big plays on those guys?
Well, listen, I'm sure you guys will be up to the task, Coach. Best of luck. I want to keep in touch with you. Like, you have a very tough schedule. I mean, it's always tough to go to the likes of Albany and Morehouse and play Clark and Lane and those guys, and Savannah State comes in. So best of luck this year. We'll have you on again. And best of luck, most importantly, week 1 against at Fayetteville.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, thank you.
Mike White is the head football coach at Benedict College, getting ready for Fayetteville State. Week 1, Saturday, September 7th, on the road. Then they'll go to Johnson C. Smith to take on the Golden Bulls the following week. I should say they'll be home for that game against Johnson C. Smith. 2 CIAA games back-to-back, 1 on the road, 1 at home. Let's take a 30-second break. I need to reset because we got some stuff, a bunch of moving parts going right now. 30 seconds, we'll come back and explain everything on Pass. Stay tuned.
Having trouble with math or science homework? Call Rose Holman Institute of Technology's Homework Hotline, a free math and science tutoring service for Indiana students in grades 6 to 12. Call toll-free 1-877-ASK-ROSE from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, Sunday through Thursday. And a Rose Holman College student will help you with your math or science questions. The tutors are patient, smart, and pretty cool. Remember, it's a free service and a free call. That's 1-877-ASK-ROSE or visit AskRose.org.
Welcome back to the show. It's the Batchelor News Radio Show, and we thank Coach Mike White from Benedict College coming on. I'm going to go to our next coach in just a second. Just want to remind folks that we had to move some stuff around. Our caller in Detroit will get to you as well, and as well if we can have Nick Anastas hang tight if he can. If not, Nick, I totally get it. But I want to go to the phones, bring in the head football coach at Shaw University. The Bears getting ready to open up their season, and we're happy to have him on. It's been a minute. He's Adrian Jones. And Coach Jones, I appreciate you coming on, sir.
Thanks for having me here.
So you look at the order of the finish, if you will, the preseason picks. Obviously, the preseason says that the pre-All-American and all of that, those rankings have Bowie, State essentially winning it all, Fayetteville State right there. How does your guys feel about it? And is that something that you use as momentum or something, a bulletin board thing where you can rally the troops?
Yeah, absolutely. It's nothing but motivation for us. But at the end of the day, preseason is what they call it, preseason picks. And our guys are working hard and they're focused and their eyes on the prize. And we just got to continue to do what we do every day is work hard, put our hard hats on, and continue do what the coaches ask them to do and stay disciplined.
I think actually you and your opponent up the road are going to surprise a lot of people in the South. The North has kind of been getting a lot of accolades, and Bowie and the two Virginia schools have been pretty good over the last few years. But talk about the South, how tough it is to win. It's very, very talented. Don't sleep on Johnson C. Smith. Winston-Salem State is always there. Talk about the South and how tough it is.
No, South is, like you said, it is tough. You got us. I think that we're a pretty good team. Fayetteville State has been good. Winston-Salem is going to be good this year. Livingstone, people don't think of Livingstone's good, but they gave us a little bit of problems last year, and they were one of the teams that I really was impressed with. So, top to bottom, it's anybody's game. It's just the biggest thing is staying healthy, and, playing those early games and getting some wins non-conference to get that momentum going into the South. But it's up for grabs.
You got a lot of talent returning, and some guys have made the preseason All-American. Talk about that talent on both sides of the ball.
It's the most talent that we've had since I've been here. We're talented all the way across the board. Wide receivers, of course, we got Marquise Gorham and Daniel Bender, two of the best receivers in the conference. Stat-wise, they're like the top three in the conference. We got a slew of running backs that we're impressed with. We had some problems with our run game last year, but that's from what was going on up front. You got Keanu Gonzalez and you got Bobbitt, who's also was both all-conference picks. And we got guys that came back from last year as well. So that offensive line is going to be deep. Our defensive team, you got Devin Hunt, who's been around for a long time and still here doing what he does. You got Jaleel Stroggins, who's been an all-conference guy, as well as Kevin Sherman, but many other guys on the D-line. You got Anthony Mitchell, who got a lot of playing time, Robert Washington, and a couple transfers that we had here but wasn't eligible to play last year. So those guys would have started for us last year, but now, coming after a year getting eligible is really going to help us out.
Talking with Adrian Jones, of course, he is the head football coach at Shaw University. Bears getting ready for Campbell coming up. Coach, you've had a winning pedigree. Struggles, of course, coming here. This team won one game, and, of course, you won two your first season and has been turning around ever since. Talk about the importance of Shaw football, the tradition, always being in the hunt for CIAA a football championship.
No, we lost it for a while, but, I tell the guys all the history. I had to look back myself when I took the job and try to find out, all about the history. They won a lot of championships, and the reason why they won a lot of championships, they had a great coaching staff and had good football players, and we brought in some excellent guys to play football. We got some D1 AA transfers, some D1 transfers, and not only that, the guys that we bring in fit the mold of our coaching staff. They do exactly what we ask them to do. They go to the weight room. We don't have to go monitor them. When I first got here, it was a lot of monitoring, telling people to be here and be there. But now they hold themselves accountable. When you got a football team like that, I call it we got a bunch of wannabe great kids, and those wannabe great kids means that they're going to go in the weight room, and after the weight room is done, they're doing extra before football practice. They're out there 20 minutes before football practice working on their craft. When you ain't got to direct kids and they doing it on their own, sky's the limit.
Coach, I look at your schedule. We'll talk with Adrian Jones, of course, before you get out here. A couple more questions, Coach. I look at your schedule, and my goodness, you're going to play a very good Campbell team on the road to start it on the 7th. Then you're home against Bowie State. What a way to start your first home game. Shawan can score with anybody. You got them. With respect to Edward Waters, after that you got the Virginia school you travel, and then you go to Fayetteville State. You look at the schedule. What went into it, and how talk about how tough this schedule is in the sense of on paper. I mean, you guys are capable, but on paper, this is one of your tougher schedules.
Oh, yeah, it's a brutal schedule, but it's going to prepare us for the playoffs. I'm speaking that into existence. We're going to play some tough teams, and the good thing about it is, like, we look at it, every team that we play from the CIAA, all those teams that we're playing non-conference, and then the Fayetteville State and the Winstons of the world, all those teams are in front of us. Bowie State's in front of us. Virginia State's in front of us. Chowan is in front of us. Winston is in front of us. So we are out to try to get these wins and prove people that, we're a team to be reckoned with. But, we don't bow down to any team. Campbell is an excellent football team. We know that. But we're going to go in with a mindset that we can win the football game. But we're going to have to play sound football and eliminate mistakes, as well as Bowie State coming into our house. They've been good for the past 6 or 7 years. And we just want to get on that level of the Bowie States and the Virginia Unions of the world that have good football teams year in, year out. And I just think that this year is going to be a good year for us. We just got to stay healthy and just trust the process.
Final two questions. I had Coach Chavis on, as you know very well. You just heard from Mike Brown at Benedict, and you have these out of conference games that they play. Benedict, of course, playing J.C. Smith and Fayetteville State. You playing Campbell, St. Augustine's playing the likes of Lenore Ryan. How important for recruiting is it to go out of conference and win these games?
That's very important because, the Fayetteville States and the Winston-Salem's, all these schools, we all pretty much recruiting the same kids. And a lot of times you lose the kid by, they come on a visit here at Shaw University and just say to go to Fayetteville State. Fayetteville State can say, well, we beat them. Well, why would you go there? So, it's those type of things. You got to win those games because we're all recruiting sort of the same kids. We don't have a lot of bells and whistles, but at the end of the day, a young man that wants to come to a university wants to go to a place where they can win, and not only win, get a good education.
And that is so important, of course, at Shaw and most of our HBCUs. Coach, we know Bowie is second, and I know the cliche, and I know you tell your kids one game at a time, so you can't worry about Bowie. You got to worry about Campbell. What are the keys to getting a victory on the road week one?
Week one, like I said, we got to, it's the first game of the season. We got to eliminate mistakes. We're going to have to play fast. It's a bigger, stronger team than us, but we've been working very hard. We got to be confident. We got to dissect them. Got to make sure we know everything they're doing. But last year, the score don't really tell how well we played. We didn't do very well offensively. But defensive side of the ball, we was on the field too much. But it was some good things. We hung in there, and I think that they know we're good, But at the end of the day, they supposed to win. But we got that mindset that whoever's in front of us, we got to try to defeat them. And I can't say anything about our kids. Our kids are just on another level here. It's hard to explain it, but if you were able to come out and watch us, it's just a different atmosphere. They love where they at. They appreciate everything that we're trying to do for them, and they want to make us coaches happy. They want to win a championship. They want to win every football game that we play this year.
Well, and that I will do, Lord willing. I'll be at some of your games, and it'll be interesting. That last game of the year, that one. That's the one everybody's like, you got to beat the Falcons, and it'd be nice to see if we can get both you and Coach Chavis on at the same time. But we'll see. But we'll have you on even more, Coach, throughout the year. Best of luck, not only throughout the year, but best of luck, of course, against Campbell on the 7th.
Thanks, appreciate it. Go Bears.
Yeah, absolutely. Adrian Jones, of course, head football coach at Shaw University. The Bears getting ready. September 7th, they're on the road at Campbell. Then they have a huge game, their opening game at home. I hope to be there against Bowie State, the defending CIAA football champions. Take a 30-second break and come back on the pass. Stay tuned.
Your mother-in-law just dropped in. It's dinner time, and she looks hungry. Time for a quick dinner. Think fast. Think eggs. Like an omelet with tomatoes and cheese. Quick, easy, delicious. So, she loves dinner, compliments your creativity, and finally admits you're not a shameless social climber who stole her baby boy away. All thanks to the incredible edible egg. For other quick dinner, lunch, and snack ideas, visit aeb.org. The incredible edible egg. The American Egg Board.
Welcome back to the show. We thank you for joining us. A programming note, if you missed the show live, you can go to our website, thebachelorpadnetwork.com, thebachelorpadnetwork.com, and you can listen to the podcast of this show, all the interviews, Coach Brown, Coach Jones, both excellent coaches, both excellent interviews, and should have some very good seasons. I really believe that Shaw and St. Augustine are going to surprise some people this year. I think they're, especially Shaw, they're loaded. They're absolutely loaded with talent, and they got a chip on their shoulder. This coach has been building them up year by year. They've gotten better and better each year, and I think they're going to have a exceptional year. We'll see if they get to the big game in Virginia, but I think they're gonna shock some folks this year. So thanks to Coach Jones, thanks to Coach Brown as well, Benedict College. I want to switch gears real quick and go back to the caller, and this is how we do it, sir, on this program. We cover everything.
Okay.
But to your point, the Russian interference has been confirmed by every, federal agency in terms of law enforcement in this country. So we know, in fact, they tried to, they didn't influence, but they did tamper with, all 50 states is what I'm saying. Voter fraud, though, has been, I won't say disproven in the sense that it never, ever happens, but I just was reading an article on the fact that out of over 1 billion votes in that over the last 2 elections, that only 31 were looked at and looked upon as some form of voter fraud. It's just not something that happens a lot. Not to say that it doesn't happen, but I'm not saying that you should, if you have a concern about it, that's fine, but it's just not something that actually happens all the time. And we have to be very careful, especially when you have, this president saying that, people were shipped into New Hampshire, that's why he lost. And there's absolutely no evidence of that. The Federal Election Commission said it. The state of New Hampshire said it. It's just not true. So we have to be very careful when we say these things and throw these things out. So.
Okay, yeah. Well, the 2 I cited were factually proven with the city of Detroit and Chicago, and that's just why. And I appreciate your opinion. I just like to, rest in mind that with our upcoming election, that we ensure that it's just U.S. citizens that are voting, and that we don't have more votes being casted than voters. Now, I granted mistakes do happen. I get that, but it was, to me, pretty blatant with what happened in Detroit and Chicago. I do acknowledge, yes, that Russia did try to influence our election, but I give the benefit of the doubt to the President Trump as far as accusations that he was directly involved with Russia trying to influence our election, just as much as on the conservative side is getting an uproar now that President Trump his campaign was being spied upon through these FISA reports, where I'm not going to sit there and say President Obama had anything to do with this until I see some direct, evidence and definitive proof on that. So those are my thoughts. I appreciate that too.
Yeah, and I should have said voter fraud,
sure,
not suppression. But and you have a right to your opinion. I'd like for you to send me that data on Chicago and Detroit, because I have never heard that. And again, all the data that I've read, and I read a lot of it, points to it otherwise. And the other thing is too, to remember that, again, not to, I'm an independent. I'll just say that, but.
Sure.
So I don't want to be partisan, but Mitch McConnell has some bills there in the Senate that can help thwart any Russian interference. They're already trying now as they speak. If you believe the president, that's your prerogative. The proof is still coming out. Democrats have been dragging their feet on impeachment and all this other stuff. But if you believe that, that's fine. But what I always go by the facts. So if you want to send me that information, that'll be fine. And like I said, Mitch McConnell, bipartisan bills, by the way, he has where he can bring the vote to the floor, and we can put some real stuff in place. This is our democracy. If you're really concerned about people voting where they shouldn't, then a lot of these things, not just the Russian interference or trying to stop the Russian interference, but making sure everything is on the up and up, can happen if he would just take the votes. He's got the bills right there in the Senate, but he won't. So let me give you my email address. I'd love to read those articles if you can.
Sure.
It's LA Batchelor40 at gmail.com. You can send that to me, and I'll be happy.
LA Batchelor at 40 at gmail.com.
Yeah, and it's LABATCHELOR40 at gmail.com. I appreciate the call. I'm going to take a break, come back, and get our next guest on the line on the past. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Total Wine and More. It's much more than a wine store. It's the eighth wonder of the world.
When people talk about Total Wine and More, they get a little carried away. We're just a big, friendly place run by people with a passion for wine, beer, and spirits.
8,000 different wines, 2,500 different beers, 3,000 spirits, and friendly, helpful experts at every turn.
You know what? Maybe we are the eighth wonder of the world.
Shop in store or online at TotalWine.com.
Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome back to the show. It is the Batchelor News Radio Network. Changed the name, and the radio show as well. It's LA here, and patiently waiting on the line. We hope to get Coach Simmons on from FAM if he calls in, but patiently waiting on the line, and I mean patient, is my good friend who covers New England sports, in particular Patriots, Celtics, and Red Sox, Nick Anastas. And Nick, welcome back, and I'm glad that you're back on the mainland, and I hope you enjoyed your vacation.
Thank you, LA. I certainly did. Never lasts long enough, but I'm back here in New Hampshire and ready to roll, ready to take on the fall with both legs under me.
What is the reaction with Chung and the situation near the indictment? What are they saying, and what's been well, I know Coach is not going to say much, but what are the Patriots saying at this point?
Not a whole lot, like you said. Especially with Belichick, you got to really be persistent in any questioning regarding that, but you're not going to get much until there's more official business to be done, so to speak. So not a whole lot in terms of, anything new from when the story broke. But, Talk Media is going to defend him. He's been a big part of the team. Oftentimes, I think, an overlooked part of the team. They went on to win the Super Bowl despite his injury, but he's certainly a veteran presence back there, and, he's going to be missed. We'll see how long this thing drags out.
Anything short, well, I mean, it's a couple of ways you can look at this, Nick. We've seen situations where Roger Goodell and the NFL suspended guys before they were convicted, and then we've seen Roger Goodell hold back until the law of the land took place, and he's facing some felony charges with this grand jury saying he had the charge of cocaine possession. So what do you think the NFL will do if he's found guilty? Do you think they'll react now, even before he's found guilty?
It's hard to say. I mean, you spelled it out pretty good. I mean, there's no real rhyme or reason with Goodell when it comes to really anything in terms of player punishment. We've seen him grab the bull by the horns on certain occasions, so to speak. We've seen him be very reactionary when it comes to other cases. So it's anyone's guess. I think there needs to be something uniform put in place, right? I mean, either you're gonna treat it separately from the court That's fine. You want to do your own thing, that's fine. Or not, or let the court proceedings, take place first, and then go ahead and come out with a punishment if there needs to be one afterward. I just think there needs to be something black and white in place moving forward. And I've said this for the last few years. It seems a little unorganized, a little helter-skelter to treat everything case by case. I think there should be some kind of a disciplinary policy put into place when it comes to court proceedings and things like that.
The Patriots got some issues. You talk about, them possibly bringing back a troubled wide receiver. You talk about that. But if nothing happens to Chung, right? Is it going to be this? Here we go again with the Patriots. You and I have had these conversations over the years with their Super Bowls. You got Spygate and Deflategate and all these different things that are going on, the controversies, whether they're getting favoritism or not, and that kind of thing. If they do not come down on him, and if he's convicted, come down hard, will it be sort of like the rest of the league and fans saying the Patriots once again get this favoritism?
I think it depends on how he rules, obviously. If he comes out and, lays the hammer down, then I don't think critics will have much room to stand. If he does, apparently get a slap on the wrist, then certainly that'll throw some fuel on the fire. So I think, unfortunately, we're just stuck right now, today, in a position where we have to wait and see. But my prediction is that it probably will levy some kind of a suspension. I think they really have to. You can't just let this kind of a thing, like you said, a felony charge, go unanswered. So I think at some point there'll be some kind of discipline, some kind of a suspension handed down from the league. It's just hard to say what or when it will be.
We're talking with Nick Anastas, Anastas Media here on the pad. Are the Patriots going down the road of not maybe being the Raiders? The Raiders just taking in all kinds of people, all the misfits, all the people who got in trouble and stuff. Are they becoming to be sort of a soap opera, if you will? You still have that rift that I'm understanding between Tom Brady and the coach. Brady signs the extension. We know that. But are they starting to be one of those franchises now that maybe they're taking on too much controversy?
Yeah, that's a fair point. We've seen in the past Belichick not shy away from it, signing guys like Chad Ochocinco a few years ago, Albert Hainsworth. Those are guys who came with a lot of baggage, a lot of red flags. Neither of them really panned out here, but Belichick was willing to give them a shot. As far as Josh Gordon goes, you mentioned him earlier. He appears like he's trying to do the right thing. He's coming off more, I think, sympathetic than anyone else. I mean, the nature of his problems has really been self-inflicting, which I think, when you deal with addiction, it's kind of a different story in terms of sympathy and things like that. He voluntarily stepped aside last year. He was proactive with it. I think the league understood that when they reinstated him last week. So, as far as Gordon goes, I think that's a little bit of a different animal. But yeah, as far as Belichick goes, I mean, his bottom line is always, can this guy come in and help us win? And we'll kind of handle everything else in house. I think that's been really the outlook, and will continue to be under Belichick as long as he's head coach.
Yeah, but he's got this Al Davis just win, baby. Like, bringing in. Right. I mean, even Randy Moss didn't have a substance thing, but Randy Moss had baggage. He brought him in, and that worked out pretty well for them. But you got a Josh Gordon that God bless him. I hope he gets well, right? I hope everything goes well for him. But you don't normally see the Patriots kind of bring in a Josh Gordon with that type of situation, off the field or something like that. But, and then you get with Chung with the cocaine charge. I mean, it just seems like they're tumbling in a different direction, which is kind of weird for the Patriots way.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think some of the criticisms have been fair. Now, if you ask the average Patriots fan off the street, they're going to say the opposite, basically, of what everyone else said. You know, where they're accused of favoritism, they're going to say Goodell's out to get him, and obviously, Deflategate will be Exhibit A. You know, people are still very upset about that, and I know it's been a few years, and you know, they ultimately won a couple rings afterwards anyway. It's just a different mindset amongst the fans. I mean, the fans, you know, in Bill we trust. That's not just a slogan. That's exactly that describes the average Patriots fan's mindset to a T. So you know, they're going to come up with every excuse in the book, whether it's warranted or not, whether it's justified or not, to try and defend whatever actions they do. But as far as Gordon goes, I think again it's a little different because this is a kid who's asked for help. He's been suspended, you know, 4 or 5 times at this point, and you know we'll see. Hopefully he's turned that corner, and you know, now at age 28, hopefully there's a little bit of maturity and you know some life lessons have been learned. But you know, as far as Bill Belichick goes, again, he's got about 6 or 7 million Patriots fans that'll step up to his defense at the snap of a finger.
Absolutely, and let's not forget Robert Kraft with his own personal issues going on. So, you know, yeah, I mean, I understand that, and fans are, I mean, ask Steeler fans, and you know, you'll get the opposite of whatever. You know, Antonio Brown was get rid of. You know, I mean, the fans are always going to be fanatics in that regard.
Right.
I want to switch to baseball, and hopefully we'll get Coach Jeffries on. When you look at this Red Sox team, and listen, you've been saying, hey, they've been steadily getting better, improving. You know, they got the pitching going now and stuff. But they're clearly, I think, not going to win the division, but they're right there on the outside looking in right now. But still, you know, in the hunt for a wild card. What went wrong on the second half of the season? And then one of the things I asked T-Mac, Tony, who covers baseball, about this team with this manager. Was it just the injuries or things just didn't fit? Or do you think in some cases, in some players, that they quit on this guy?
I'm not going there. I don't think that's. I think that's too extreme.
Okay.
I do think, though, looking back, there's going to be a couple things you can point at. One is that slow start. They just it appeared from the outside looking in that they just weren't ready to go for the entire month of April, and ultimately you can't do that. Not in a division this good. Not when the entire league is better than it was a year ago. But they just didn't come out with that, you know, seemingly same hunger, that same seriousness, I think anyway, that they showed last year. Two, you know, I still think it was a mistake to let Tembrell walk because they didn't have a closer in place.
That's
and
right.
The amount of early blown saves, again, contributed to that bad start, and that's something that they never really addressed the whole season, not even at the trade deadline.
Which was surprising to me. I thought they were definitely going to address it.
Right, so did I. Now, whether or not there was a deal to be made or not is debatable. But ultimately, again, they did not improve. They didn't get better the day after the trade deadline, and you can't do that. This team's still talented. I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs or not. I mean, again, I think the entire league is better. So it's going to be tough to get that final wild card. I think they're 6 or 6.5 out now. We'll see. There's still 6 weeks to go. They could heat up, but it certainly doesn't look good. But I think looking back, the slow start and the fact that they never quite could nail down that 9th inning guy, really it sums up the season.
You know, just to look at a couple of teams in that division, the Yankees, listen, you look at them, and I'm sure you agree, they need some starting pitching. In a short series, they can get, they might be able to get through, but in a long series, they won't. They needed to shore that up. They didn't do it, and it's really, and you can comment on this. It's really amazing that Daddy Steinbrenner would have just went and got whatever.
Right.
Cashman is saying, you know what, I'm not selling the farm, which is really weird for Yankee fans that they don't want to give up their talent in the farm system. They got one of the better ones now. So talk about them. How far do you think they go? And, when you look at Tampa, again, as I mentioned to you and I mentioned to T-Mac, they are still there. They're still there.
Yep.
They have not dropped off. They're a half game out, I think, in the wild card. So talk about this Tampa team and why they are still hanging around.
It's Billy Beane 2.0, isn't it? I mean, you take a look at the model. They don't spend. They don't have the money to spend. So every year their hands are kind of tied from that perspective. But they just go out and they get pieces. I mean, they get veterans who maybe were overlooked, maybe underachieved a little bit, but seem to fit their system. Guys that can get on base, guys that can hit. They draft well every year, it seems like, and have a lot of homegrown talent. So, and Oakland is still doing the same thing right now. I mean, Oakland nobody talks about. They're right out there in the West, I think holding down the wild card right now.
Yeah, with Cleveland, yeah.
Right. So, the fact that there's no salary cap means that some teams, the big market teams, have a built-in advantage. They do. They have other options. They can throw money at problems, whereas small market teams cannot do that, in my opinion. So you got to get a little creative. You got to crunch a little bit more of the numbers, and that's what Tampa's been able to do. That's what Oakland's been able to do for the last few seasons, and it's worked out for them. Ultimately, is that going to be enough, to win the whole thing, to win the American League, and then go on to win the World Series? I don't know. Tampa, I think in 2008 went to the World Series, but fell short. Oakland had a few trips to the postseason about 15 or so years ago where they were pretty good, but ultimately it hasn't been enough. As far as the Yankees go under the new regime, so to speak, maybe it's a good thing. Maybe there is something to holding on to the talent and letting that grow a little bit. Give yourself a few more options as well internally. Whether that's trade options at the deadline, down the road, or some of these guys just come up and ultimately contribute to the club. I mean, maybe there is something to that. We'll see. But it's definitely, and it's been apparent, I think, since the Suns took over, that was going to be the philosophy, more of a conservative philosophy when it comes to just throwing around dollars at the latest and greatest name.
How far they go, though?
We'll see.
The talent. I don't think they have enough. I don't think they have enough pitching, enough starting pitching.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I'm not sure what the latest is with Severino and Montgomery. I mean, those were their two probably most promising starting arms who have been sidelined for most of the season. I still like their bullpen, though. If you can get a lead into the 6th or 7th, especially with Betances coming back. I mean, if he can contribute, if he can get up to speed in time to get ready for that postseason, that's going to be a big 8th inning weapon as well. So we'll see, and they can smash the ball. I mean, they can hit as good as anybody. So I don't know.
But the only thing, Nick, though, is you can't 5-inning every game, and I mean. You got a couple of guys that can get into the 6th, but if you can't get into the 7th inning, you're gonna wear your bullpen out in the playoffs.
Right.
You can't pitch like that. And
right.
Just as shocked as you were, where Boston didn't go after a closer, I can't believe that the Yankees didn't at least try to get some type of veteran pitcher that can go out there and win some games for them in the playoffs. I just don't understand it.
Right. No, I agree. I don't think I have much to add on that. I think we're pretty much in agreement. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Yeah.
One thing I will say, they do still have CC Sabathia, and hold on, don't laugh me out of the room yet. But this is a guy who has a ton of postseason experience.
That's right.
He does seem to pitch better in the spotlight. I mean, I'm not a huge CC fan, to be honest with you, but you can't argue with the resume. I mean, the guy, he'll eat innings in big spots, and will that be enough? I don't know, but certainly the Yankees, I think, still hold him in high regard, and we'll see what happens. But you're right. Bumgarner was a name that obviously we had talked about that didn't come to fruition. Part of that, I think, was the Giants got competitive, got hot right before the deadline, and may have thought twice about getting rid of him. So maybe it was a matter of bad timing there or whatever. But we'll see. I mean, you take a look at all these clubs, though, in LA, and there's some kind of a major concern with everybody. So ultimately, time's going to tell, and who's going to step up in the big moment is obviously the big question every year.
Got an emailer that wanted to ask you about the National League, and look, the Cubs are up right now. Atlanta's been solid yet again this year, and the Dodgers are the Dodgers. But you look at the wild card, with Washington and St. Louis right there, the Mets have just been soaring. I mean, they struggle a little bit, recently, but they're right there along with Philly and Milwaukee. So the West is still yet to be determined in terms of the wild card, at least, and at least in Chicago with the Cubs, with Milwaukee right there on their back. So talk about that. And then the biggest thing I want you to talk about is the Dodgers. And I love this manager. I root for this guy. I was rooting more for Mattingly because of the huge Mattingly guy, but that it is what it is. But we've seen this movie before with them. We've seen this movie with the Dodgers before. And Clayton Kershaw has now he's got some more help in the pitching, but he still needs to be consistent and step up and be lights out or be very, very good in the playoffs. He still, to me, has to build on his resume. But are the Dodgers a done deal? Because, again, we've seen this movie with them before.
I think they're certainly the favorite. I mean, at least in the NL, right? Nobody's really talking about the Braves. They're playing 600 baseball all year. But still, I think it is the Dodgers to lose. I mean, as the two-time NL champs, it would make sense. But you're right. It seems like they put up the best regular season record, and then they handle business in the first two rounds, and then get beat decisively in the World Series. But maybe that's part of the process. On a positive note, you have to learn to lose in those spots before you can win. And we'll see. I mean, Kershaw's still in his prime. Now he has that bona fide postseason experience.
Right.
So that is something. And there is something, too, I think, the confidence of the guys in the clubhouse. We've been there before. We've come up short, but we know what we need to do now.
But Kershaw's probably a microcosm of the Dodgers organization, right? Like they keep losing.
Yep.
And then maybe he needs to get over the hump just like they need to get over the hump.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it's unfair to pin everything on him. But you can certainly see the parallels between the team's success and his personal ups and downs over the last few years in the postseason.
But just real quick, the only thing, Nick, the only reason I say that is because I wouldn't say he's in Tom Brady status at all, right? He doesn't have the rings and all that.
Right.
But let me put it this way. Sometimes the media will overhype a guy to the point where A, either you don't root for him, or B, you think he's overrated. And they hype this guy. He's got great stuff. We know that. But he hadn't been consistent winning when they needed him to win in the playoffs. So that's why I'm saying it's not all on him. I understand that. It's a franchise thing. But he is the face of the team. And if he's gonna bomb here and then do okay here, that's not consistency. So if they're gonna give him all the glory in the regular season, and he bombs in the playoffs, he hadn't bombed all the time, but if he does, then he's got to take that blame as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's fair, and I think he would agree with that. I think he'd probably be the first person to agree with that. I mean, he's not very outspoken anyway. I mean, you don't really hear, at least out here in the East, you don't really hear much of him in the media. He seems like just kind of a quiet lunch pail guy. Leave me alone. I'll do my thing. You do yours. But I think if you were listening in on this conversation right now, I don't think he would, irk the responsibility. I don't think he would make an excuse, So we'll see. If they do get back to the World Series, it'll be the third straight trip. And like I said a few minutes ago, maybe it's one of those cases where you build on your previous failures, and they finally do get over the hump. That would certainly bring a lot of valediction to him. That would I think elevate his career another notch. That would solidify him, maybe amongst the greats. I mean, that's really the only thing missing at this point is that ring, that World Series ring. So,
right.
I think your criticism is fair. And after the World Series is over, we can pick this up and see what happens. But it always goes back to the fact that there's 8 other guys on the field as well.
That's true.
And some of that blame has to go around. The offense seemingly disappeared the last 2 Octobers when it mattered. He's only out there, every 5 days. So, but you're right. I think that the last piece that's missing is that World Series ring, and if they do get back there, it'll be fun to watch.
And watch out for Atlanta, like you said. I like Atlanta a lot.
Absolutely.
A lot.
Absolutely. Nobody's talking about him either, LA. Nobody's talking about him. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if they upset the Dodgers and took the whole thing in the NL.
And I'm a Yankee fan, but I've been praising the Mets, and they finally showing something. But it's almost like the Red Sox. It's like too little, too late, almost. But we'll see what happens if they make the wild card. Nick, as always, man, glad to see you back in the States. I'm glad you had some vacation. We will talk with you next week. Thanks for your time, sir.
Just gotta get over the sunburn now. We'll be all good.
Thanks, Nick. I appreciate you, man.
Thank you.
All right. Nick Anastas, Anastas Media on a pad. 30-second break. Come back on a pad. Stay tuned.
If you want to hear another view of the latest developments in Trump's Washington, listen to the Dr. Larry Show. Every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Dr. Larry is a former businessman, entrepreneur, college president, and author who provides background and context for current events and trends in politics, education, foreign policy, and religion from a conservative perspective. Tune in and hear the other side as Dr. Larry talks with Washington insiders exclusively on blogtalkradio.com and the podcast at thebatchelorpadnetwork.com.
Welcome back to the show. It's the Batchelor News Radio Show on the Batchelor News Radio Network. What a show. Mike Brown from Benedict College, Adrian Jones, head football coach at Shaw University, Nick Anastas with Anastas Media, talking some sports with us too. Had a caller that talked about voter fraud and the concern that he had. He sent me an email, which I'll check on the stats. He said that Chicago and Detroit had some alleged voter fraud going on. This president mentions it and how all these mysterious people came into New Hampshire. He would have won New Hampshire if these people didn't come in. I want to bring in another caller, Nas, calling in, and I believe in Hotlanta somewhere there in Georgia, man. I don't know if you caught that, but there was a caller that talked about his concern. It didn't seem like a plant, but he had concern about how voter fraud, based on what the president says and what conservatives try to say, is taking place. Obviously, the percentages of voter fraud in this country are so minute, it's not even funny. Your thoughts on that, and the fact that Mitch McConnell, and again, I'm an independent, but Mitch McConnell has a few bills that he can take up that are bipartisan that can thwart, or at least try to thwart, a lot of this Russian interference and a lot of this alleged voter fraud.
Yeah, well, look, you're a good man because you try to give people a fair shake and you're cordial. But I think there are times where we just got to call a lie and a distortion a distortion. We actually have a problem with voter participation in America.
Right.
We have a huge swath of eligible voters who actually do not vote. As you already, stated, illegal voting is something that is so rare. We're talking about 0.0001%. And, that's over a massive amount of election cycles. So when people present this con, which is what I call it, of this idea of voter fraud, and they want to institute these voter ID laws, what ends up happening is we see that in areas that are not supported by the Republican Party, you see, DMV offices being shut down. You see voting precincts being moved further away. My voting precinct before the Bush years was 2 blocks away. Now mine is almost in another city. As far as Atlanta is concerned, a little further out. So when you hear this stuff, you know what it actually is. It's kind of interesting that they pick out Chicago and Detroit, 2 places that have a high, a really low rate of voter participation, not a thing of people cheating. And then they try to tie it into an illegal citizen or illegal immigrant argument, when in reality, the majority of illegal immigrants are trying to stay off the radar. People are not out here risking their freedom to vote and put a bullseye on themselves. So the argument
and Nas,
into it, man.
He sent me an email. He mentioned Detroit, Chicago, Texas, Philly, Pennsylvania, and New York as places of voter fraud. Is what he sent me an email, and with links on them. So that I guess my question to you real quick is that can a person be misguided based on their loyalties to Republicans, to Trump, as well as trying to out and out lie?
Yeah, I would say a mix of both. And honestly, if a party was going to cheat, would they cheat in districts and places where they're going to win? Like that already sets the stage for how ridiculous a claim it is. Like, just think about the areas you talked about. Why would they cheat in those areas as opposed to purple areas? And then the other thing is voter fraud in this day and age. If it does happen, you're talking about manipulation of the machines, hacking. You're not talking about sending somebody to go vote twice. Like, that doesn't actually move the meter. This isn't 1920 where you tell a guy, hey, go in there and vote 3 times. Like, that wouldn't affect anything. Anybody who would do some type of voter fraud or manipulation would be hacking machines and doing it by the hundreds or hundreds of thousands. Crosscheck, a program by Chris Kobach, is actually the most important and disruptive force in democracy right now, where they can hold up people's vote based on their last name, just who they are, based on, hey, you're Cindy Rodriguez. Well, there's a Cindy Rodriguez in another city. So you use a common name to challenge people's vote. And that's actually a bigger problem along with gerrymandering. So voter suppression is actually the issue that needs to be addressed, not this false idea of voter fraud.
Nas, let me ask you, though, you're in Georgia. You got the Stacey Abrams, who so many people know she won. Let's be clear. She won. And it's all about voter suppression. The current governor helped make sure that he won by suppressing votes. And people wanted to run for the Senate. That's a whole other thing. But do you think, again, as just plain advocate, that people are more to believe, some people, that there is some form of voter fraud rather than the fact that they think that Russians can come in and all the reports I saw and the data I read said the Russians came into 50 states, right? All 50 states and did something. So do you think that it's hard to believe that Russians will infiltrate that much into our democracy?
Yeah, well, that goes to, how partisan society is right now, to where people go to their own echo chambers and they think they have their own set of facts and they're going to roll with those, and everything else is, we make the other side into the most evil, vile thing ever. So anything is possible and can be believed. And for your side, anything, no matter how thin, you're willing to believe it. So in Georgia, where you had 3-hour wait times in urban areas and in suburban areas, people were getting out 15 minutes as far as the polling stations. And we've seen the voter machines warehoused but not used, and all of these other tactics, let alone the idea of somebody running in an election that they were overseeing, the conflict of interest there, that they finally had to close that loophole. But just the idea that went on in this day and age kind of shows you how ridiculous it is. But yeah, I'm with you on that, man. I think once you choose a team, which is a sad thing in politics, we shouldn't be choosing teams. People are willing to believe anything for their side, and they believe the other side can do the most egregious thing possible.
Yeah, and I don't know this cat, right? And he said that, and I think I agree with you. I think the fact that he brought up these cities, right, that Democrats are going to win anyway, is kind of speaks for itself. I don't know, where his heart is, but it's very blatant that New York. I mean, really? So and Detroit. I mean, so Philly. I mean, Philly. If anything, Philly's got a total transformation at this point. So that's really, it just seems a little disingenuous. Let me ask you, just to go to the political side. And we had a guest on earlier, Dr. Wilmer Lee, I'm sure you might be familiar with, that talked about the black vote and the fact that Joe Biden continues, and it's a long marathon, we know, till next year, but he's not only getting the older black vote, which we've expected, but, he's getting the vote overall in terms of black people. We don't know about millennials and what they'll do and whatever. Why is it that a person like Senator Harris can't infiltrate that? Why can't she penetrate the black vote right now and Biden gets it? Are we always going to be this middle of the road, moderate, stay in your lane, don't go to the left, don't go to the right, just stay in the middle, the safe vote type of people, for the most part?
Well, I think older black people are really pragmatic about voting. They look at the issue as, okay, do you have a chance to win? Okay, that'll be the person I support. If you remember how long it took for
winning for who you winning for?
Well,
you ain't winning for us. You know what I mean?
Hold on, I'll get there. Hold on, I'll get there. So they're really pragmatic. So remember how long it took for Obama to actually win over some black electors and black voters during his first time against Hillary, because most people saw Hillary as the person who was going to win. And, it took a while before he, got that support. So going back to what we're talking about with Biden, this is just name recognition and the fact that he was the vice president, so he's really famous. People remember the memes. Early on polling, to me, doesn't mean as much. If you go back to 2016, Trump was polling in the, under 10%. And, Bush was the head at the time of the Republican Party. When you look at things, for how they played out, that polling, you could just, ball it up and throw it in the trash. So I think this polling is way too early. Biden's got a lot more gas to give on the campaign trail, and I think we'll see him slowly start to sink. And Harris, Sanders,
but the CBC is the microcosm of black vote. They always go with the safe vote. They always do this, and it's always, and it seems to be not in the best interest of African Americans. The CBC they wanted Clinton. They didn't want Obama. Congressional Black Caucus, for people who are listening. I mean, they didn't want Obama. They wanted Clinton. So if the CBC is going to go that,
remember, those are people who test which way the wind is blowing and then they go that way. So once things on the ground start to shift, they'll immediately change their support. Like, we're not talking about dyed-in-the-wool ideologues here. So, I mean, I've got my critiques of them. I know you got yours of them. But when it comes down to it, I don't think they have any idea about the pulse of black folks in general, especially in voting.
Let me ask you this, and this is controversial, and I'm probably going to get in trouble because I already talked about it earlier This orange orangutan in the White House, it said that Congresswoman Omar and Tlaib have no business going to Israel. He went on, and I'm paraphrasing, that any Jew that votes for Democrats is weak and it's not loyal to Israel. And my thing is this: number one, Democrats are not. I mean, the campaigners are. They're speaking about it, right? And Bernie Sanders is the only one that actually said what I'm about to say. But Nancy Pelosi and, again, the Congress are not speaking with the talking points or any points to combat this, number one, to save them. Number two, if Israel's so quick to cut off two duly elected Congress people to come to the country, then we should cut off the $3 billion just alone this year that we gave to Israel. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it was a weird thing because basically he accused them of anti-Semitism with anti-Semitic attacks. Like he got into some Henry Ford stuff. Like it got really weird yesterday when we're looking at this. Like, okay, what is this dude doing? And when it comes to Omar, look, the two sisters are pushing on things that they don't want disrupted, meaning the Democratic Party, meaning they don't want controversy, they don't want people to rock the boat because they feel like they're going to be able to coast on the ineptitude of 45. Now, the problem with that is I think Israel would have been good with letting them come over and would have tried to present a good tour, would have tried to get involved and make sure, the worst of the news doesn't get out there. But by him laying that tweet out there, it kind of forced Netanyahu's hand to try to, support the guy who moved the embassy already and everything else, and it ended up making this story much bigger and actually hurting them in the long run. And then when you look at it, who's the ally? Like, I've got some Jewish friends who were really upset about some of the things he was saying yesterday, and some of these people were upset at Omar before, but they've completely switched now because of some of the things he's saying. And, the God complex stuff like that was Twilight Zone stuff. Like if you were a CEO somewhere, they would remove you. Like that was a little crazy.
But the thing is, and like I said, Bernie Sanders is the only one that said, hey, Israel don't want to allow all our Congress people to come over. And Congress controls the purse, by the way. Then let's take the money back. Bernie's the only one that said that. All the other ones won't even touch it. And so, I guess.
Well, just think about the strategy, though. If you're being accused of human rights violations and treating people horribly, considered apartheid light, if you're being accused of that, your reaction should not be, well, you're not coming and we're blocking you out, because that makes you look much worse. You should be able to say, no, the things people are saying aren't true. We can actually show you that it's not what people say it is. So, I mean, I don't even get their strategy here. This looks bad.
Well, Netanyahu is I don't know what this guy 45 has on a lot of people. Apparently, some naked pictures of Netanyahu or something. But they just fall in line with this guy. They fall in line, and he's a racist. He's a sexist. He has a problem with people, women of color, women. Period. And again,
I don't think he's hard to read, though. I think people
he's not.
see him as somebody who's easy to read, so they feel like they can take advantage of him, not only in deals, but in diplomacy and everything else. They feel like they're going to end up with the better end of the bargain in dealing with him. And it's kind of worked out that way when you consider, the North Korea situation. You consider Israel. They got the embassy moved. They're still getting their, the funding that they're getting. Like most of these situations, the other side ends up with the fat deal, and he ends up, just with more rhetoric for, the base.
That's a great point. And then the base being either ignorant or racist, supports this man. I guess, again, no surprise, but the concern is that, Democrats are so engulfed in enamored in trying to beat this guy, but they don't fight this guy. Imagine President Obama. We got to run. President Obama making those same comments. The Republicans would have been on Fox. They would have been calling impeachment. Every time he said yes, they would have said no. If he said up, they would have said down. Democrats don't do that. They don't. They're weak, man. They just don't. And I don't.
Well, let me throw something in on the weak, because I don't think they're weak. I think they spend the majority of their time fighting progressives and the actual left.
That's a good
they
point.
don't have much, but they don't have as much disagreement with center right. So in their
That's
minds, they can
point.
come to some agreement and conclusion with the center right. But the left, those are the folks they want the hell up out the party or not controlling the party. Just show up to vote and go sit down somewhere. Like that's what they feel like for the left.
But wouldn't you agree though? Like Joe White guy in Iowa is not coming back to the Democrats. Farm guy in Iowa is not coming back to the Democrats. Why do they keep trying to cater to them? Why do they keep trying to, date them? Why?
Right.
They're not coming back.
About it. So the idea of Reagan Democrats is like, okay, that's 40 years ago. You're talking about a whole new generation of folks, and you're still chasing after this trope that doesn't really exist. But you have to say this, though. White working class, like union workers and all of these different people in the Midwest and some of these rural areas who did vote for Dems before, and Dems simply walked away as they were ravaged by, losing their jobs.
What union, Nas? What union? What union? All the Iowas and the Michigans and all the Wisconsins, they were union busters. What union? What union are they coming back to?
The few that are still there, I'm saying, across Wisconsin and everything else. Remember, the biggest thing for re-election for Obama was what? The auto bailout. Everybody told him not to do it. Rahm Emanuel was yelling at him not to do it. If Obama did it anyway, and that was able to keep a lot of jobs here that would have been gone, and those people were a part of that Obama coalition that voted for him and then turned to Trump in 2016. So, there's class questions within this, too. You know what I mean? It's race and class. There's a lot mixed up in it. But,
but a lot of those,
this
I
idea
know.
that they're going to chase the suburbs is laughable at this point.
It's a fantasy in it. Right, and there's a lot of union people that are black that were happy. But, the black auto workers, so I talk to them all the time, and some of them are very kind of moderate at best, so he helped the auto industry, but it was a lot of black people that he helped in the auto industry. I don't know if Larry the farm guy is going to come. He's not coming back to the Democratic Party. He's not. Trump, it says Steele is coming back and all this other. He's not coming back. If he comes back, it won't be right now. And that's the concern. Nas,
it's amazing to watch these farmers have to be bailed out through basically welfare from the Treasury because of his idea of a tariff and a financial war, and these same people are going to go vote for him again. So, what do you do?
Yeah, and that's corporate welfare. They don't want, affirmative action. They don't want, food stamps, but they'll take the welfare money that Trump gives to them, though. But they don't want any welfare, though. No social welfare.
After he decimated their market. So somebody comes in and decimates the market, and these people call themselves conservatives and free market conservatives. You're like, wait a minute. You got government intervening in markets and causing disasters and then paying for it out of the Treasury. A real conservative wouldn't support that. So this is interesting.
Yeah, and they'll vote for against their own self-interest, which is really amazing. I'm being nice. I started to say another word, but amazing is is the word. Nas, what I need you to do is just shoot me an email so we can correspond. I got some other ideas and want to talk to you. LA Batchelor, BATCHELOR 40 at gmail.com. LA Batchelor with a T, BATCHELOR 40 at gmail.com. LA Batchelor 40 at gmail.com. That's going to do it with us for us this evening. Thanks to Coach Brown, Mike Brown at Benedict College. The big game they have coming up on September 7th. We'll have him back on. Of course, Adrian Jones at Shaw University, their game against Campbell. And, of course, Nick Anastas, Anastas Media, talking Patriots and Red Sox. If you miss any part of our broadcast, any interviews, just go to our website, just like I gave, The Batchelor, T-H-E, Batchelor, B-A-T-C-H-E-L-O-R, Network, BachelorPadNetwork.com. And on that first homepage, you'll be able to listen to a barrage of not only music but shows, including interviews with Nas, with our caller, with the coaches. Everybody is there. Okay, it's the BachelorPadNetwork.com, the BachelorPadNetwork.com. Listen to the podcast. All of this. Follow us on Facebook at Pad Nation, on Twitter at Pad Nation 2. That's Pad Nation, the number 2, at Twitter, Instagram, LA Batchelor, and of course TuneIn.com and iTunes if you have an Apple, iTunes.com. We'd love to hear from you. You can hit us up with emails and questions and comments on our website, thebachelorpadnetwork.com, or thebachelorpadnetwork.com. You can hit us up with comments like Dennis in Michigan. Hit us up there. And again, Pad Nation, Facebook, Twitter, and all of those. And we thank you for listening. Make sure you tune in again. Don't forget, tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern is Locker Talk with Barry Barnes. Barry will be talking week 2 of the NFL preseason, talking about those players that actually made the roster from HBCUs and small schools that are making an impact on these rosters. It's Locker Talk with Barry Barnes. It takes place 9 a.m. Eastern Time, right here on blogtalkradio.com/LA Batchelor. And again, the podcast is at our website, as I mentioned, thebachelorpadnetwork.com. Enjoy. Talk with you next week on the Pad.
Footsteps, baby. The host of Sandy's Secrets. Come and join us, where we will be talking about women's issues of sexuality, sensuality, and self-love. We'll be coming soon, exclusively on the Batchelor Pad Radio Network.
Yeah.
boots with the gold feathers. I brought the squad with me. Black on black bandanas. I say it's champagne. I did the damn thing. Dirty Diana, singing and dancing all in the rain. Ooh, I just wanna have a good time. Turn around, next inside, and curl that ass to the right now. Ooh, funny how drop, up, cross your legs, turn around and clap. Shuffle to the left, let's glide now. Ooh, drop it down low, low to the floor. Bring it up, pass it, roll. Step on them,